Hey everyone, it's Alice here from Top Mark Science, and today we're going to be looking at plant reproduction. Throughout this video, we will be exploring the plant gametes, their names and where they're produced, the structure of plant reproductive systems, and the difference between types of pollination. Let's get started. Life on Earth has evolved over millions of years, from simple cells to complex organisms, and for this to survive, and this to survive, and this to survive, they need to reproduce. That's right, plants can reproduce sexually as well, but not in a way you might think. They rely on a variety of other methods, like one here you may have seen, for this reproduction to occur. And their main aim is to produce seeds through their male and female reproductive organs, which are often contained within the same plant. The male reproductive organs are called stamens, and females are called pistils. So when you see a flower, you do not actually see the whole picture. We can dissect it to see much more inside, to give us a greater detailed image of what's going on. There are many structures that play particular roles in reproduction, like the petals, anthers, which on closer look we see tiny grains, which are the male sex cells, the gametes. This is pollen, essential for flower reproduction. This connection here is the filament. So the anther and the filament together form the stamen, the male reproductive organ in a plant. In the middle section at the top is the stigma, connected to the style, where at the bottom you will find the ovary. The stigma, style, and ovary is known as the pistil, the female reproductive organ. Upon closer inspection of the ovary is the ovule, where inside the ovule you will find other small structures, which are the female gametes of the plant, the egg cells. The flower also has a nectary, which you might be able to guess what this is for, producing sugary nectar which insects, such as bees, will collect for their own use. And a sepal at the bottom, which has an important role in protecting the unopened bud. Pause the video here and use the words listed to label the diagram structures A to H. If you finish, try the challenge. Let's go through the answers. Get ready to mark and annotate your work. So A is the anther, B is the filament, C is the petal, D is the ovule, E is the stigma, F is the style, and G is the ovary. And finally, H is the sepal. Now, the challenge task was to describe what might happen in order for fertilization to occur in plants. If you watched my video on human reproduction, you may already know that fertilization is the fusion of two gametes. In human reproduction, this is sperm and egg. But in the case of plants, we need to refer to the plant gametes, pollen and eggs. So the pollen grains made in the anther need to meet the egg cells made in the ovules through a process called pollination. More on this in a bit. Now let's see if we understand the role of each structure. Pause the video here to match the structure of the flowering plant to its role. You may write the words and jobs out yourself, or if you would prefer, you can match the letters to the numbers. Time to mark our work. Let's see how we did. And the answers are now on the screen. Feel free to pause the video here again so you have time to go through it all. Now the challenge was to suggest ways pollination can occur and if you can place them into two categories. Pollen grains from the anther need to get to the stigma so they can later get to the ovary. For this to happen, the stigma can receive pollen from its own anther, and this is known as self-pollination. Or pollen can be transferred to the stigma from another plant in a variety of methods, and this is known as cross-pollination. Pollination may happen by wind or insects. Take a look at these two plants here. One is adapted to attract insects, which can then pick up pollen and take it elsewhere, and another is adapted for wind to take away pollen or receive it. Pause the video here and complete the table by ticking the structures you think wind and insect pollinated plants have. An example has been started for you. If you finish, try the challenge. Let's go through the answers then, which are now displayed on the screen. Both types will need the essentials for reproduction, like a stigma, stamen, and pollen. However, plants that rely on insects for pollination need elements to attract them, such as colourful petals, sweet substances such as nectar, and nice smells. The wind is not attracted to any of these, and if anything, petals can get in the way of it. The challenge was to compare the stigma and pollen grains in insect and wind-pollinated plants. How are they different? So the stigma in insect-pollinated plants are enclosed. The petals surround it. Whereas in wind, they are exposed. This is handy, so it can be exposed to the wind. The stigma is also sticky in insect-pollinated plants, providing a greater opportunity to receive pollen when an insect lands on it, whereas they are more feathery in wind-pollinated plants to catch the pollen. The pollen itself in insect-pollinated plants is large and sticky, so it can attach itself more successfully to the insects landing on the flower. Whereas in wind-pollinated plants, the pollen is more likely to be carried elsewhere if it is much lighter, and so therefore they're smaller. The use of insects is vital for plant reproduction, so whenever you see something like a bee landing on a flower, it will brush up by accident on the anthers containing pollen in the process of collecting nectar, and fly to the next flower to get more nectar. But in the process, it drops pollen onto the stigma and collects even more pollen before flying on, and the cycle continues. They are so important to our food production process because of this cycle of pollination events. So when we have pollination, let's have a look at what this actually does. Pollen from elsewhere, or the same plant, lands on the stigma. This triggers the production of a pollen tube. So now the nucleus of a pollen grain can travel down this tube towards the ovary. And so the nuclei of pollen grain fuses with the egg in the ovary, which eventually develops into a seed. And this seed, with the correct conditions, temperatures, water and sunlight, will then germinate to form a new plant, and the ovary forms a fruit. Pause the video here to use the statements to draw a storyboard. Only the first and last statements are in the correct order. Let's go through the answers then. For this task, not only did we need to draw, but it's important that we put the statements into order first. So we've already been told that the first statement is in the correct order. So pollen is transferred to the stigma. A pollen tube then grows down the style to the ovary, and the nucleus of the pollen grain travels down the pollen tube, and the pollen grain then fertilizes the nucleus of the egg in the ovule. This fertilized ovule develops into a seed, which has DNA from both parents, and then the ovary develops into a fruit. Well done, guys, if you got these in order. And a storyboard could look like this. Don't worry if you're not an artist, but it is good practice for drawing diagrams. So as long as you include simple drawings of key structures, that is what matters. Time for our end of video quiz. Let's see what we can remember. Question 1. What are the male and female gametes in plant reproduction? Pollen and egg cells. Great start. Question 2. The name for the female reproductive organ is the pistil. What structure does this consist of? The stigma, style, and ovary. Well done. Question 3. Which part produces pollen? That's the anther. Question 4. Plants cannot move. How can they ensure that pollen fertilizes the eggs? Self and cross-pollination. Excellent work. And question 5. Name a structure insect-pollinated plants have that wind-pollinated plants do not, and explain why. Petals, a nice scent, and a nectary, and these are to attract insects. Pause the video here to rate your progress so you know what to work on in the future. This can help guide our revision. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more from Top Mark Science, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time.